Hi everyone, how's it going? And welcome to episode 8 of my podcast. Today you'll hear me talk to Katie Kellner, who's a three-time Olympic marathon trials qualifier and a three-time Division I All-American. Katie attended Cornell University where she ran both cross-country and the 10K in track. By the time she left Cornell, she was an Ivy League champion in both. Recently, she was also inducted into the Cornell Athletics Hall of Fame, which is a pretty cool achievement as well. After speaking with Katie, what stands out the most about her is her mindset. So if there's anything you get from this episode, I hope it's that. I hope you guys enjoy. Hi, Katie. How's it going?
Hi, Rashad. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you. It's awesome to have you here on the podcast.
Yeah.
This is episode number 8. So, super excited. I did a couple episodes and I learned a little bit. So I'm excited to get into almost like a new
Yeah.
season.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Right. So, let's just get right into it. So I just want to know when you started running, how you got into the sport, and was there a moment where, you kind of felt like, okay, I want to pursue running in college. I want to continue performing, continue enjoying the sport. Was there a specific moment? If you could just talk about that.
Yeah, of course. So I started running in seventh grade. I joined the cross country team at my middle school, and it was honestly mostly exercise and building some confidence. I was a really shy girl and didn't really want to be involved in any after school activities. And my parents like, you should try something.
Hmm.
How about cross country? I was like, I don't know. That seems like a lot. I'm not sure. But when I was a kid, I used to like go outside and run laps around my house for fun. And when I would take the bus to school, I would like jog to the bus stop just because it took long to walk. So my parents are like, you're good at running, like you like to run. So I was really, really nervous, but I gave it a shot and cross country had no tryouts, so it was low pressure and went to the first practice and we did a 2 mile time trial and I did great. And it was a huge confidence builder. I finished near the front of the group and I was like, oh, this is great. This is kind of fun. And I ended up making a lot of friends on the team. And at that point in my life, it wasn't really about like running fast or, winning awards or anything like that. It was mostly just about finding myself and becoming less shy and making friends. And it was really just an all around positive experience. I wasn't even thinking about running in high school. Didn't know I could until the high school coach approached me at one of the meets and was like, I hope you're thinking about running in high school. And I was like, yeah, this has been fun. And high school is probably when it became a lot more competitive for me. Still really enjoyed the team environment and the friendships and the day to day, but I also started to care more about like winning championship meets and making it to states. And I think our state meets called Meet of Champions and finishing as
Right.
high as
Yeah.
I could at the Meet of Champions. And still in the first, probably my freshman and sophomore year, did not think about college running, did not even really understand what it took to be a college runner. And then my coach at the time, his name is Kurt Wayton, he was started putting it into my head my junior year. He's like, like you're running times that are fast enough where, you can run Division I in college. And I was sort of just like, what, really? Like, are you sure? And then all the college letters, recruiting letters started coming in. And that junior year, it started really becoming a possibility. And I started visiting schools with the intention of running. So, yeah, and that's when I started running in college. So, I wouldn't say there was necessarily this like spark moment of, I wasn't like running in middle school and, seeing college runners on TV and being like, that's what I want to do in the future. It was just sort of one baby step after another. And similarly with the pro running, I didn't really realize that I could be a professional runner until probably about, junior year of college when I was starting to think about what's next. So yeah, it was just sort of like one gradual step at a time
Right.
to get to the next level.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's great. Great to hear. For those of you guys listening that go to South, Katie and her sister still hold some of the records there today. If you go into the athletic wing, they're actually still up there. I know Veterans Park is one of the events she still holds the record for the ladies, which is awesome. This many years down the line, I mean, clearly she dominated when she was at South, which is awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Great experience.
Yeah. Um, you know, I think I'll transition a little bit into some of the mindset aspects of running because for me as a tennis player, I the biggest thing I think about when I think about running, and I know you, especially with marathons, I mean that's incredible, is just how much endurance you guys have as runners. And I'll be honest, I hate running. Anytime I have to train for
I don't
tennis,
blame you.
anytime I have to go out there and run for tennis, just get my fitness up, it's like,
Yeah,
oh, this sucks.
that's the not fun part.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So when you get to the starting line of those marathons, right? When you're going into the Olympic trials or even just any other marathon around the world or for that matter, even when you practice and you're like, okay, today I'm gonna run such a long distance. What is your mindset like at the starting line? And then how does that kind of shift as you get into mile 10, mile 20, later on in the race or
Yeah, that's
run?
a great question. For races, I personally get really excited about races. So there's not as much of a motivation factor in terms of starting a race as there might be starting like a long workout session.
Gotcha.
The races kind of feel like the accumulation of all the hard work that I put in. So there's sort of this excitement of like, okay, I just trained for a few months for this. Like, let's see what I can do.
Right.
So yeah, so there's some like there's a fun aspect there. In terms of like a really long workout, a lot of days I do feel excited to conquer them, but of course I'm human and like anyone, like I definitely have days where like motivation wanes. And I feel like that's why I really enjoy living in a city like Boston. I have tons of people here. There's so many people here who run, and
Right.
I'm able to meet up with friends who, are also have big running goals most days of the week. And I rely on them a lot on the days where like I'm feeling a little bit subpar or a little bit unmotivated. I shift the
Gotcha.
focus from, all right, like I need to go running to like, all right, I'm going to go like hang out with my friend and we're going to go running together. So that definitely really helps. And usually once I get started, I start feeling much better. Like the biggest challenge is getting started. Race wise, when you're talking about the marathon and you kind of asked how my mindset shifts throughout the race,
Yeah.
one good thing that I like to tell a lot of my coaching clients is that there's there's going to be lots of ups and downs in the marathon, and just like your emotions, nothing lasts forever. So when you're having a really good like mile or two or three of the race, like don't take it for granted, like feel good and appreciate that you're feeling good and you're feeling
Right.
strong, and it's great. And when you have a bad 1 or 2 miles, remember like, okay, like just like the good didn't last forever, the bad doesn't last forever either. And generally, a race, in general, a race doesn't just like get naturally harder as it goes on. Like it's not like, okay, if I start feeling bad at mile 16 of the marathon, it's not just going to get worse and worse and worse from there. Usually
Right.
there's periods of ups and downs. So just not catastrophizing and thinking like, oh my gosh, I have 10 miles left. I'm already feeling bad. Like instead being like, okay, like I'm having a tough mile. Let's just hold it together. Like this might get better in the next mile. And oftentimes it does. So it's often a trick I try to refer to is just like really trying to stay in the present moment and not catastrophizing having off miles of a race.
No, I think that's good to hear because, again, I can't even imagine running a marathon. Like I don't even think I can imagine running like 10 miles, 15 miles. That sounds brutal, especially when I'm like, even when I'm running like 3, 4 miles, when I'm in the last quarter of the run, I'm like, man, this sucks. I just want it to end.
It does. Yeah.
Um, but I guess that's really what kind of helps you be successful. And funny enough, you almost kind of answered my next question. The next question was just going to be like when you're on a long run, whether it's a marathon or in practice, and you're tired, when you're or maybe hurt, maybe something is bothering you, and you're in a race, but you can keep going. Um, what do you tell yourself, right? Like, I mean, you almost answered that with the okay, this is not going to last forever. that kind of mindset. But is there anything else in the moment? Okay, my ankle's hurting a little bit, or my legs just they're done. How do you push through? What do you say to yourself?
Yeah, I kind of had, I feel like an experience at the Olympic marathon trials that sort of answers this question very well. I actually went into that race being ever so slightly injured. Not like you said, not injured enough where I couldn't run, but
Right,
injured enough where it was making me sort of question whether or not I was maybe going to be able to finish the race or run to my potential. And it's a little bit less fun and motivating going to a starting line when you're like, I might not be able to do my best today. So I really had to put in a little bit of extra effort to find that fire. I had a hamstring strain, and I got to the line. I was like, you got to be excited about this. You don't know. You might have the best race of your life today. Like
right,
you trained really hard, or maybe your hamstring's going to give out halfway, and then it is what it is. But trying to focus on the fact that like there was a chance that it could be a really good day, and not letting a one little thing like totally not letting it convince me that it was knocking me out, giving myself a chance to shine. And I went into the race and the hamstring did bother me the whole entire 26 miles. It bothered me. But it wasn't significant enough that it like impaired my ability to run for the first like 23 miles. And I got to mile 23 and it started to seize up a little bit. And the last 3 miles were really brutal. But instead of thinking like, oh, this is awful, like my hamstring is really hurting me, how am I going to make it to the finish? I kind of tried to reframe it as, okay, wow, your hamstring made it to mile 23. Like it was a possibility that it was only going to make it to 13. So like, this is
right.
good. Like you're going to be able to finish this race. And that is really exciting. You're going to have a finishing time on the sheet. And I was running pretty fast. I did lose quite a bit of time in the last 3 miles trying to avoid a cramp. But I still finished in a good time, a time that I would have been, it was not a personal best, but it was a time that would have been a personal best a year and a half ago. And so, yeah, I guess just to answer your question more specifically, like giving yourself a chance to shine, even when things aren't going perfectly, you never know, like whether it's a little injury or whether, your training wasn't perfect because, you got sick and you missed a week. Like, that doesn't mean don't count yourself out. That doesn't mean it's all over. Like, you can still have a really good day.
Right. I mean, I'm amazed at your mindset, to be honest with you, because it just sounds like it's perfect for running, and I can understand why you succeed in this sport. Um, that's just awesome. To move on, um, like you just mentioned, you just went for the Olympic trials.
Yeah.
So when you prepare for marathons, I just want to hear I just want to hear about your preparation, maybe a day in advance, a week in advance. What are you doing in terms of your your running schedule? Is there something you like to eat before the race, or something you do with your diet to run that much? Are you resting a lot? Where are you mentally? Could you talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. So for a marathon, the like intense training period is usually the 2 months leading into the race. So yeah, so that's when I'm like really focused. The highest training period, meaning like when I'm running the hardest workouts and the most miles per week, is about a month out from the race, maybe like 3 to 6 weeks out, like that sort of range where I'm in like real serious mode. And during that time, I'm pretty tired. I'm running as much as I can without breaking down. So recovery, like you mentioned, resting is very, very important. I go at least weekly to see a local chiropractor who does work on my body, even when I'm feeling healthy, just to maintain that. Um, I do sit in Normatec boots, which are like big compression boots that help with
Right,
blood
right.
flow. I'm really cognizant about how much sleep I'm getting. Um, Sometimes, that can be up to like 10 or 11 hours a night when
Oh
I have the
wow,
time for it. Yeah, I know you're like, that would be great. I wish I didn't have to
that would
wake
be
up so early for
awesome.
school. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I do go to bed pretty early, on most nights, sometimes as early as like, 8:30 or 9, just to make sure I can get that kind of rest. So, resting is just as important as doing all the running. And then as the race day approaches, like the day before the race, my mileage will significantly decrease like in that week. I'll probably run like 3 or 4 miles the day before the race. And to give some perspective on that, like when I'm training at the highest mileage, I'm running probably like, 15 to 20 miles a day. So, running, that is like a pretty significant decrease in daily mileage. So the taper is really important. Um, in terms of food, my stomach is pretty strong. So I don't have any like, oh, I have to have this meal the night before the race or anything like that. But I do make sure that I'm eating enough. And this goes through the entire training cycle. Like, fueling is really important. And when I'm running this much, sometimes I have to eat a little bit beyond my hunger cues, which is counterintuitive, for how, we learn in society to eat.
Right.
Usually people are kind of taught like eat less than what you feel like you need. And I definitely have had to take the approach of like, you might need to eat a little more than you think
Right.
you need. Because I am really burning a lot of calories and doing a lot with my training. So yeah, nothing specific food wise. I mean, I do try to eat relatively healthy, but I don't avoid any food groups or anything like that. Mostly just try to avoid like processed foods as much as I can. I'm human, so I'm not perfect at that.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I don't like have any specific dietary restrictions or anything. Just trying to make sure I get the big food groups.
Right. Um, Going along with that, what happens after, right? So either after a
Mhm.
marathon or after a long run, or when you're in that intense cycle of training, we always think about, okay, before I go play tennis, before I run,
Yeah.
before I do this, I got to eat like this, I got to sleep this many hours before,
Yep.
whatever, loosen up the body, stretch out before. But what do you do after? Do you have like, do you go and stretch after? Do you get in the leg compression machine? What do what are you doing?
Yeah, it depends on the day. I don't think that there's nothing specific besides eat that I do immediately after eating. As eating within 30 minutes of a hard effort's really important, even if it's just a snack. Um, Other than that, like sometimes I have to like get right to work. So I'm not always necessarily able to just like immediately like jump into like a warm bath or take a nap or put on like the Normatec boots. But those things do happen during the day when I have breaks. I mean, I work from home, so like I have the ability when I have natural breaks in my day to go and do those things.
Right.
But yeah, immediately after the run, I mean, sometimes I'll stretch a little bit if something's feeling tight. But a lot of times the focus is like snack, breakfast, shower, work.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That's good to hear. I mean,
Yeah.
I know every athlete's a little bit different.
Yep.
I know a lot of athletes that immediately afterwards have to spend 20 minutes of stretching,
Yeah.
otherwise their
They
muscles
tell
feel
you. Yep.
terrible. Um, but I'm honestly surprised because I'm one of those people that likes to stretch almost after I
Hmm.
play. Um, so for someone who's running like 15 or 20 miles, I mean, if I had to do that, you would
Yeah.
catch me doing every possible recovery technique I
Yep.
knew,
Yep.
um, just to be able to walk and then forget and do
Yep.
anything else.
Yep. One
Um,
one other thing that I do think is actually kind of helpful is I do have a dog. So a lot of times after runs, I'll have to take him out for a walk. And I think sometimes, even though I'm not stretching,
that's like a cool
walking
down.
is sort of like yeah, it's kind of that, I'm loosening up the muscles, but not working too hard. So that kind of, I think, actually benefits me more than I realize.
Gotcha. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Um, you know, for everyone listening, Kitty owns her own running school, running program. Forward focused running, if I'm
Yep.
not
Hmm.
mistaken.
You got it.
Sometimes I was trying to practice this before. Is it focus forward running or is it forward
Yeah.
focus running?
Forward focus.
I got
Yeah.
I got
You
it
got it.
right.
You got it right.
So how's that program developed? Because I just saw that it's been about 5 years roughly.
Yep. You got it.
Um, how's that program developed? And I'm sure you work with high school athletes, or if you don't, you're relatively young athletes. So what is maybe one thing that you like to focus on in general, or like say I join your program tomorrow, like what is the first habit or first thing you're gonna try and get into um my training?
Yeah, so you're right. I started forward focus running about 5 years ago, and prior to that, I worked for another run coaching business before starting my own. I actually don't often work with high school athletes. I have coached about two or three high schoolers in the past, but most of my clientele are adults, like college
Okay.
age and older, or like out of college and older. Some I think I work with some people who are, up to 65 years old.
Wow.
So, but most are in their 20s, 30s, and 40s and 50s too, like that sort of range. Um, yeah, and just any adult. And the reason that it's an older age is most of the clients that I'm working with are people that are interested in running half marathons and full marathons.
Okay.
And most high schoolers, like, it's fine if I would not recommend a high schooler run a marathon. It'd be fine if they ran a half marathon, but even that's on the long side. So
Right.
it's just not my personal expertise. And also,
Gotcha.
a lot of those athletes, are running for high schools and they have their own high school coaches. So they don't necessarily need to hire like a private coach. They could, but I think there's something to be said for just like, being part of the team environment and, doing the same workouts that the rest of the kids on the team are doing.
Right.
Even if it's not quote unquote the perfect workout, it doesn't so much matter in high school. I didn't always do the perfect workout in high school. It's more about learning to enjoy the sport
Right.
and, building a good foundation, like a good, healthy foundation. And I think in college is when you really want to start pushing it and doing things that are more quote unquote perfect for you. And then again, I don't often work with college athletes mostly because they're, on teams with coaches as well.
Right.
So I occasionally work with some college athletes who are interested in running marathons, but they're not on their college's running teams. They're just really, excited about running.
Into it. Yeah.
But yeah, most of my clients are adults. A lot of them are training to try to qualify for the Boston Marathon. That's probably like my most common um, person. So the Boston Marathon, if you aren't familiar, there's different qualifying times per age group. So like, 20 to 25-year olds will have their own qualifying time and then, et cetera. It gets a little bit slower as you get older. So it's a really fun goal for runners who are very talented, but not quite at the elite level. And yeah, that's sort of where I thrive, where my coaching thrives. And yeah, when people first come on and join, I'll do a consultation call with them and get an idea of what their running experience is. Some people I work with have never run before, and they're just like, I'm really interested in getting started. I want to build, have a healthier lifestyle. How do I do this? Like, I don't even know where to begin. And then other people I talk to are like, yeah, like I was a very successful college athlete and I'm just looking to continue this. And they know a lot about running and they've run at a very high level for a long time. So how I approach the coaching really depends on where the person is starting at and what they're looking to achieve. And yeah, some people are looking to achieve like really fast times or really big goals, and other people are just looking to achieve like some balance in their life and getting in physical activity each day. So yeah, it really depends.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I guess I was or maybe I had a wrong impression
Yeah.
about your
Mhm.
clientele and the age group for that. But
Yeah.
um, you know, what you said makes perfect sense. I'm sure there's not one thing. Everyone is it's probably very it's probably very different for each person, each situation.
Right. And when I have gotten high schoolers, when I worked with high schools, it's been mostly high schoolers who are looking to train in the off season, like run over the summer when their school only practices in, the fall and the spring.
Right,
So it's been, yeah, but for the most part, I feel like, yeah, the high school runners are kind of involved in their high school teams.
right, gotcha. Um, you know, kind of touching about that upon high school runners, what advice do you have for high school runners? Because that's
Mhm.
kind of the age where I'm at, and
Yeah.
my target audience really. Um, what's one piece of advice that you have for high school runners and athletes in general?
Yeah, this is, a question that's been fresh on my mind because I actually just had a close friend of mine and her daughter who's, 14, she's a freshman in high school, come visit me, and she was running at the high school indoor national meet for track just this past weekend.
Right.
And it really made me reflect back on my high school days, and she was asking me a lot of questions about what I was like in high school and, trying to get some, advice and tips from
Mhm.
me, which was really fun for me to think about. And, like I said at the beginning of this recording, when I was in high school, like I wasn't thinking about like trying to become a professional runner. I was just having fun with what I was doing. And that's, I think, my biggest piece of advice is have fun and enjoy the experience. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to be the best or get to the next level. You don't, there's so many high schoolers who I feel like either put pressure on themselves or sadly are under a lot of pressure from coaches, parents, various, other adults in their life, where then
Right.
they burn out and they don't end up making it to college. Or if they do make it to college, they don't enjoy the experience in college because they're so tired. Um,
Sure.
so yeah, at high school, you probably don't feel it, but you're still a very young athlete, at least in comparison to me at 32. So like and again, I'm assuming this applies for all sports, like just like have
Right.
fun, enjoy the time with your friends, like make your sport like your favorite part of your day. And I think if you're doing that, like you will naturally get to the next level and naturally get the best out of yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think I noticed what you say. The people who you observe who are enjoying themselves out there, um, even if in the moment they're serious, they're focused, but at the end of the day, the people who enjoy themselves overall, um, you typically see them to be the most successful,
Exactly.
which is almost ironic because you would think that the guy who's or guy or
Taking
girl
it super
who's
serious. Yeah.
yeah who
Yeah.
eats eats breathes and lives their
Yeah.
sport um is going to be the number one or whatever it is. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great piece of
Yeah.
advice. um I had two more questions. They're a little bit um more casual. After the marathon or the I guess for you the marathon is probably a good point where you want a little bit of a reward. So what
Yeah.
do you have, like a certain meal that is really satisfying, or a dessert, or do you go out for ice cream or things like that? Do you reward yourself with
Yeah.
a nice meal or something after
Absolutely.
your
I'm
run?
also usually starving, so for sure. I think my absolute favorite thing that I like think about when I finish racing is a brownie ice cream sundae. That's my favorite food. So that's probably my reward. But I will say I usually eat something like a burger or something nice and filling, lots of protein first, and then dive
Okay.
into the ice cream sundae. But yeah, that would be my post race treat for sure.
That sounds really good. I don't know. Maybe I'll try that after the next time I'm like, oh, it's been a long
Yeah.
day.
When I was in high school, my parents, for better or worse, would always buy me or my sister a small mini like Carvel ice cream cake whenever we set a new personal best in an event. So I think I
Okay.
associate ice cream with like celebration of good races.
Gotcha. It's been like a memory that's
For
that's
sure.
been
Yeah,
there since high school.
absolutely. Yep.
That's really fun to hear. My last question to you. This has been great so far, but I think I don't know. I haven't been there with you through a lot of the fun moments or the interesting moments. It's hard for me to kind of
Yeah.
research that. But do you have maybe one story of, say, a time you're on a run and something happened, or do you have just a good story related to running at your time at Cornell?
Yeah, I probably have both of those. I
Okay,
mean,
let's hear it.
Cornell was a really special time for me because I had a really great team. I loved my teammates, and we just had such a fantastic dynamic. And probably my favorite memory was at the Ivy League championship meet in cross country my junior year. It was at the end of October, actually it was held by Princeton, so it was in West Windsor actually, which was kind of cool to be in my hometown for this race. And so you'll be extra familiar with what the weather is usually like at the end of October in West Windsor.
Yeah.
And it was blizzarding that day, and that is not
Oh,
something that
wow.
is typical, as you know.
That's crazy.
And so me and my teammate Jenna, we took the race out hard and just we were like leading through this blizzard. And that's just a memory I'll never forget, like that teamwork of running side by side. We
Yeah.
didn't end up placing 1, 2, although Cornell did place 1, 2, 3 the following year. That year we ended up, I think I ended up fourth in the race. But
Okay.
Cornell won and as a team, and it was the first time we had won the Ivy League championships in cross country in 13 years, and we won by a single
Wow.
point, which is pretty small in cross country.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Points are calculated. Just it's you add up all the places
Add
of
up the places.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
So
top five or
yeah,
yeah.
some races it's top five, and some races it's top seven.
Okay.
But yeah, so it was really close. We beat Columbia by a point in the snowstorm, and that will always be one of my favorite college memories. Just that memory of running side by side with my teammate and one of my best friends.
Were you allowed to, were you allowed to wear more than the traditional cross country attire? I know. I mean, if you were in that,
Yeah,
you must have been freezing.
we just had on the singlets. Yeah, just the traditional cross country attire. We slathered ourselves in olive oil, which is supposed to be insulating.
Interesting.
That was
Okay.
something our coach had us do. I'm not actually sure if it helped or not, or if it just made me sticky and gross, but that's what we did. We put olive oil all over our skin to help insulate it. But yeah, we were just in the uniform, so kind of crazy.
Again, I tremendous respect to you and everyone else at that race. I mean, I don't even I can't even picture that. That's crazy. And what was the other story you said
Yeah,
you
so in more recent years, out on a training run in Boston about 4.5 years ago, I was running around a reservoir that's about a half mile from where I live. And um, you're not allowed to swim in the reservoir. It's a drinking, like just drinking water, and you wouldn't want to anyway. But I
right?
noticed that this guy was walking his dog, and the dog chased a bird into the water,
Oh
and
God.
the dog went into the water. And the guy, who I found out later was a dog walker, was pretty frantic about getting this dog back, and the dog swam. I mean, this was a big reservoir; it was a mile and a half around. And so the guy got into the water to swim after the dog, and I sort of stopped my run and just was watching this because I'd never seen anyone go in the reservoir before.
Yeah.
Um, and he gets out to like sort of the middle of the reservoir, and he starts sort of bobbing up and down. So I was like watching. I was like, "Is he okay?" And then he started screaming for help, and sort of automatically, I took off my socks and shoes and jumped into the water
Oh
and
wow.
swam out. And
How far out
ended
was
up.
he?
Sorry, what'd you say?
How far out was he?
It's a good
Was he
question.
like
I don't have a good sense of distance for swimming, but
okay?
it was definitely probably like maybe like 100 meters or so.
Oh my
Um,
God.
it was pretty far. He was pretty far out. Um, and yeah, I think I had a little bit of this false sense. I'm not like a lifeguard or anything. So this was honestly probably a little bit dumb that I went out there. I think I had this false sense that I would like swim up to him and we would sort of like hold on to each other and swim back together. And that's not at all what happened. Like he was really struggling. So once he had me, it was just his full body weight on me. Like he just stopped
Oh my
trying.
God.
And we kind of went down for a second and then adrenaline kicked in and I was able to swim him to the edge and people were watching and called 911 and took him to the hospital and it all turned out for the best, but was maybe a little bit dumb on my part, although given that it worked out, all good. But yeah, that's probably the craziest thing that's ever happened to me on a run.
And, and what happened to the dog? Were you able to save the dog as
Yeah,
well?
so the dog ended up once, the dog jumped on us as well, and I had to push the dog off of me because it was just too much weight for me to handle. And the dog was fine. He
Right.
wasn't like hurt or anything. And then he just
Okay.
ended up swimming back to the shore. So the dog was saved as well. So all
That's
good.
incredible. 100
Yeah.
meters is a lot. Oh my God. To have
Yeah, I
someone's
mean,
body
maybe
weight
I'm
on you?
exaggerating a little bit, but it was pretty far. It was, definitely over a pool length for sure,
That
maybe two
that is
pool lengths. So yeah,
that is
it was
gutsy.
pretty far
I
out.
can't lie to
Yeah.
you. Wow. Oh my God. What a way to end. What a
Yeah.
way to end with that story. That's incredible. But
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I guess that just, you know, proves the character. I mean, you're a
Oh, thank you.
very
Thank you.
very awesome person.
Oh, thank you so much.
Um yeah, I think that's it. Pretty happy that I was able to get some great insight from you.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you. Of
thanks for
course.
making time. Honestly, it's always special to have another South alum.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Or
it's fun connecting with someone at the
yeah,
school. It's been a while for me, so it's fun to see, the current students.
yeah. Well, anytime you want to visit South, let me know. Let us
Yeah.
know.
My
We'll be
parents
happy
still
to
live
have
in
you.
West Windsor, so
Really?
every so
Wow.
often I'm back at that track. So
Really? Oh, maybe one day I'll see you around,
yeah,
or someone else listening to this will see you around,
yeah,
and now we
absolutely.
know it's Katie who saved the man and the dog from
Yeah,
from drowning.
yeah,
All right, well, thank you so much again, Katie. It was an honor, and I'm so excited for people to listen to this. It was awesome.
yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
Hi guys, thanks for watching this episode with Katie. I hope you enjoyed it a lot, and I hope you learned a lot from her, especially if you're a runner. I mean, she's incredible. Thanks for watching again. I hope you guys have a great day.